And in this live presentation, I'm gonna be talking about the some of the HTML CSS measure unit, and I'm gonna go over the VH and VW. These relates to the viewport or the browser window on the internet. You know, when you start your when you're browsing your the internet using your browser, the whole browser, what you see in a browser, that's your viewport. And there is a way to use the measurement of the viewport for an element to HTML, CSS. I can give you an example. So first, let's talk about the VH and WH. So if you look here, you can see the VH. This is, if you look, the white, this white paper, imagine this is your browser. Okay, and then you have the VH, the VH units, the vertical. If you look at the browsers, this is the vertical, and the whole page, the whole viewport is 100 VH. So for example, if you specify an element 100 VH, it means you're specifying the whole page, the whole window. Now the VW, it's the width of the viewport. This is the VW here. It's, you go this way, it's the width. And also, if you specify 100 VW is the whole width of the viewport. So this is how it goes. This is how you use them. The viewport, when you add HV to it, the units, it's the vertical looking this way, upside down, you know, the vertical, that's the units to use with the the units for the VH, and the whole, the whole, that's the benchmark, you know, the whole page or the whole viewport is 100 VH, and the width is 100 VW. So let's say you have an element, let's say you have an element which is, you want the element to cover the whole page. So you specify 100 VH, it means it fills all the page from top to bottom, and 100 VW, that's the page from left to right. So basically, if you want to cover, let's say, if you have an element and you want it to cover half the page, the upper half, you can use 50 VH. 50 VH, it means the half of the page. So basically, the VH is the viewport height, the abbreviation, and the VW is the viewport width, that's the unit. And keep in mind that the whole length of the viewport, which is the window, the browser, the whole browser, is 100 VH lengthwise, like upside down, and it's 100 VW left to right. And if you want to use an element that covers half the page, let's say, you use 50%, which is 50, because the whole length is 100, so use 50 VH for the length of the page, and 50 VW for the width of the page. So this is one of the units that you use on the for measuring HTML element. Basically, you're specifying, because when you're coding with HTML, CSS, you're gonna be adding the elements, and you kind of give them some dimensions, because every element on a page, on a web page, has certain dimensions. You know, whether if you don't specify it, it's gonna take the whole. Let's say, it's gonna take a whole part of the page. Let's say you have you specify a font, and you do the background yellow. So it's gonna take the whole, it's inline block, basically the whole width of the page. So when you specify the width and the length of the height and the width of an element on the HTML on the web page, it's gonna be, it's this way you have more control of over the size. And in this case, we're talking about the viewport and the viewport height and the viewport width. So VH and VW. So if you have any question, let me know if you have any question about the VH and VW units of a browser in HTML and CSS. Let me know so I can answer you now on this live stream. If you're tuning in on this live stream, let me know where you're tuning in from. My name is Josh Shamoun, and I'm coming to you live from the U.S. state of South Dakota in the Midwest of the U.S. It's 10:39 p.m. now on this Thursday night, July 25th. If you have any questions, let me know. And again, there are many ways to use dimensions and units when you're using HTML, CSS, and this is one of them. And this unit is the viewport. The viewport is the whole browsers, what you see in the browser. This is the view, the viewport they call it. So you can expand it, you can make it smaller, but this is what it is. So again, the whole viewport is 100 VH, the height, and 100 VW, the width of the viewport. And you can divide them if you want to specify. Let's say if you want an element to take half of the page, half of the top of the page, like the height, and you'll use 50 VH. Once you specify the height of an element 50 VH, it's gonna take half of the viewport, the whole window of your browser. It's gonna take the upper half or lower half, 50%, 50. And because the whole thing is 100, so half of it is 50. The same thing with the width of the viewport. It's 100 VW, W standing for the width. So viewport width is abbreviated VW. And if you want the element to occupy half of the page, the width, you want the width of the element to specify half the page, it's gonna be 50 VW. So the 50 VW will specify half of the width of the page. So this is basically you're specifying the dimensions of an element, of an HTML element using CSS on a web page using the viewport units, which is again 100 VH and 100 WH. This is important if you wanna style an element and using the whole page or part of the page, so you can use that. If you're on this live stream, let me know where you're tuning in from, and if you have any question about using HTML, CSS, and building simple websites or making simple codes using Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is my favorite code editor, and most developers recommend it. Any developer you ask, they can tell you Visual Studio Code is great for code editing and and using programming language like web development and other languages. But I use it for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And also, you can use it for JavaScript by installing Node.js. You can install Node on your computer, using certain the npm package manager, and so you have the capability of making codes and editing codes on using Visual Studio Code on your local machine or your local computer, using the Node.js, the npm manager, npm package manager. So questions? Anybody have a question? Anybody have a comment? If you're tuning in, I want to thank you so much for your time. If you are on the live stream right now, or if you're on a replay in the future, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and let me know if you have any question about using HTML, CSS, making simple web pages, websites, and if you're interested in learning, or you already know it. Again, HTML, CSS are the basic building blocks of a web page, and then you have the JavaScript that will add interactivity to your web page. I've been learning HTML, CSS for the last couple of years with the JavaScript. I have a good idea about HTML and the CSS, but I'm still learning how to use the JavaScript, because JavaScript is not easy. It's very difficult. But I start with the basics, and I haven't done any project yet. But yeah, a starting point is if you want to learn how to develop web pages, websites, or make simple codes, you can start with the learning HTML5, CSS3, and you can download Visual Studio Code on your computer, which is an IDE. It's an integrated development environment. Um, so you use it for codes, making codes, editing codes, and making simple web pages. So it's a good skill to have if you're interested in learning that, But it takes time. You have to put a lot of effort. It's not easy, and you have to like it. Otherwise, you may not persist. So if you're on this live stream, let me know, guys. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and if you have any questions, submit them in a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so we can start the conversation, and I'll make more video tutorials about coding and certain softwares I use myself on my local computer here, and some SaaS, so like software as a service online. So yeah, subscribe if you're interested in those topics. I'm doing those live streams now, but from time to time I make video tutorials, and I make screencasting. I record screens on my computer by showing you how to use certain softwares. So if you have any questions, submit them in a comment, and let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future updates or any live streams like this one. And on a live stream, I answer you right away once you submit your question, if I have the answer. If not, I'll try to direct you to the right resources. So yeah, make sure you submit your questions or ideas about topics you want to learn about, and if you have any questions, so I can answer you. Yeah, if you're interested in learning how to code web pages, the best way to start, and the only way, is start with HTML and CSS. You have to learn them together. Some Some people tell you you have to learn HTML first and then CSS, then JavaScript. HTML and CSS, they come together. You have to learn both at the same time because HTML is the element structure on a page, but CSS, how you style them, how you give them the color, the background, the font size, the shapes, you know, so you have to use both. Otherwise, you'll have a page that doesn't have any style to it if you don't use CSS. So, yeah, guys, make sure you submit any comments or any questions so I can answer you on this live stream now. I want to welcome you and thank you for tuning in on this live stream. My name is George Shamoun, and I make video tutorials, and I'm starting with those live streams to answer your question about making web pages, simple websites, and using HTML, CSS, and starting soon with JavaScript. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and let me know if you have any questions, and because I'm here to help you now. And if not, if you are on a replay in the future, also you can submit a comment, a question, or topics you like to learn about. And if I don't know it, I try to learn it. And if I cannot learn it, I will try to lead you to the right resources. Anybody else have a question? Anybody have a question? Let me know. Submit your questions in a comment box below, and make sure you let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm very interested to know where you're tuning in from. And any questions, comments, topics, ideas? Anybody else have a question? I'm here to help you now and answer your questions. Let me know if you're tuning in on this live stream, and if you have any questions. Again, we're talking about the viewport unit in HTML, CSS, and I'll be making more videos. So again, let me show you. This is, let's say this is your the browser here. This is the browser. This is the browser window, and if you go this way, this is the height, and this is the width, and the whole height is 100 VH, the VH, and the whole width going this way is 100 VW. VW, viewport width, that's the abbreviation, and this is how you measure it. So if you want half, you use 50 VW. If you want half of the height, which is this one here, you use 50 VH. So if you have any questions, submit them in a comment and let me know if you're interested to learn about HTML, CSS, so I can explain to you and what I've been learning for the last 2 years. So There are other units, but this video is about the VH and WH. And okay, so let's talk about the pixels. The pixels is a unit of measurement, and when you use it in HTML, CSS, the default size of fonts on a web page, if you don't specify them, is 16 pixel. So the pixel, when you specify pixels, let's say the font in pixel 10 pixel font, it's gonna stay 10. It does not change. You know, if you change the browser or you change from desktop to mobile to cell, you know, to the mobile view, uh, it's not gonna change. The 16 pixels stays 16. So this is why you have to use different units, and the units that are recommended are the EM and REM. If you use EM and REM, these are relative, but each one relative to certain reference. So basically, the REM is relative to the universal element font size. For example, on the top, if you on a web page, if you add asterisks and then you specify, let's say the font size is 10 pixel. Usually 16 is the default, so it's 10 pixel. And throughout the web page, if you specify a font or another size of an element as 2 rem, 2 rem, it's gonna double 2 rem. It means 2 unit relative to the universal specs on a web page. So it means if you specified 16, the 2 rem will be 32. You multiply by 2 because 1 rem is the same as the specification on the universal of the web page. So if you specify the global value of a web page is the font is, let's say, 10 pixels, then the 1 rem will be 10 pixels. You multiply by 1, 2 rems, 20. So this is why it's good to use the rem and m for font sizes and also for elements, other elements, to specify their width and height. And the M is relative, the EM unit is relative to its parent, the parent element. So let's say you have a box 1 inside big box, and then the box 1, you specified the size to be so if you give the box, let's say, the size of 30 pixel for the fonts, if you type any fonts in the big box, 30, and if you have another box inside the big box, so it will be, the big box will be the parent of the small box, then you can specify the EM, then you use the EM. So let's say you have the font size of the big box. When you type in it, it's 30. And then the box inside the big box, let's say you want to use the font size 2EM. 2EM, it's going to look at the parent, which is 30, then it becomes 60. So basically, the M and the REM both are relative, but each one is relative to a different entity. The REM, the REM is is based on the root element, the size in the root element of a web page, and the M is relative to the parent container. So far we learned about the viewport height VH and VW, and we learned about the pixel, and we learned about the EM and the RAM. So those are units of measures. There are more I will go over in the next video, maybe tomorrow. There are the FR, which is the fraction, and then you have the percentages. So those are the most units of measurements you'll use in HTML, CSS if you're making a code, you know. The pixel, and then we're gonna talk about the percentage later on. I mean tomorrow maybe. And so we talked about the pixels, the viewport H, viewport width, and now I just talked about the RAM and M, and both are relative to but different entities. And then you have the fraction, 1 FR is a unit in the Flexbox, they use it. So this is how to use those. If you have any questions, please submit them in a comment and let me know if you have any topics you want me to discuss when it comes to making simple web pages and codes, and using tools to make websites. You know, I have been doing this studying for the last 2 years, and I have the basics. I nailed down the basic, but not in every software, obviously. But I talk about HTML, CSS, and I'll be talking in the near future about JavaScript, and I will help you how to make websites and simple web pages using templates and hosted websites. But make sure you submit your comments in a box and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.